It's the Center Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Yes! Yes! Yes, this is my favorite part of the game.
Analyzing all of the league matchups week to week.
You can't win!
Get him a body bag! Finish him!
It is a bit above average.
I said this sucks, and basically so do you.
And discussing the boom, bust, and hidden gem players throughout the league.
We ain't found shit!
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass.
Dan Marino should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell. Laces out.
Touchdown!
And here's your host,
Allow myself to introduce myself.
David Harbacken. Hello and welcome to the Center Fantasy Football Podcast for Week 7 of Season 6. We're at the halfway point. We're passing it as we speak. I am your host, David Harbacken, joined by Mr. Gazalutsky, the very apologetic Gazalutsky for delaying our broadcast for this week.
Apologetic.
Yeah, I didn't think he was. I just wanted to try.
I like that. You called me off guard. What are you talking about?
He was too tired last night. He wanted to weasel out of tonight, but I managed to wrangle him in because I don't want to disrupt your morning.
Our one viewer
I wouldn't want
complained again.
I mean, you've already ruined his Thursday morning routine. Now I've told him about his Friday. He's all he's already anticipating a podcast, and you don't even want to give it to him. I mean, we're responsive to our followers this year, I thought.
Follower. All right, let's rush it in there before he wakes up.
Yeah, it is quite late on Thursday night, so we already know the Thursday night results, which I am not happy about, but we can get to that a little bit later. Let's start with last week's results. I don't know, who do you want to start with? We could start with our one viewer who went off last week in a ridiculous game. 181.40 to 128.30, the Mighty Whalers defeating Nicky Baby with a statement game here. Winston with 40 points. Well, what's that?
Yeah, Winston with 40.
Yeah, 40.7. Countering Aaron Rodgers, 32.4. Tyreek Hill with 39.20 points to Keenan Allen's 14.3. Valdez Scantling, I think that's how you say it, Scantling, with 13.30 to Cooper Kupp's 1.2. He was banged out of the game the week before. This time he was actually taken out of the game. Mixon with 18.4, 36.5 for Gurley. LaShawn McCoy plugged in for 12.4 and only 4.9 for Allen. 17.30 for Ertz and only 3 for Cook in that horrid game for the Raiders over there in London. 10.10 for Smith, Ito Smith, and 7 for Kittle. 18 for Butker and 12 for the Minnesota defense. 21 for Baltimore's defense for Nick, and then 8 for McManus. Literally everybody got double digits for the Whalers in this game. I mean, and he left almost nothing on the bench. Hogan got 11.8. Who we picked up from my garbage can, and of course now he picks him up and now he's getting double digits. But anyway, yeah, just an insane performance. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this game?
Wow, this is a perfect storm for the Whalers. It all came together. Look at these numbers. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Nicky Baby usually puts. Even Nick's highest score would have still lost in this one.
Oh, yeah, like, Nicky Baby got Nicky Baby. These are the kind of games that Nick has had against other teams, but this week it happened to him. I mean, 181. I mean, that is clearly the highest score of the year so far. And I don't know if that's all-time high, but it's up there.
Yeah, 181 points. Yeah, it speaks for itself. Well played, Mr. Whalers. That's all I have to say.
I mean, the question is if he could be sustaining it, which he might be able to. I mean, look, he's been, ever since that 0-2 start, and he played hockey in week 3, and we were trying to determine who was going to be in the basement and who was not. Clearly, he responded to that because he came back with a fury since then. He's now won 4 in a row, and he keeps making moves all over the place. Yeah, I mean, very impressive.
Impressive, Mr. Whalers. I think he's our only viewer too.
I think Eugene listens. What are you talking about? I think, and if Eugene doesn't listen, then Lombardi. Eugene listens, and Lombardi I think listens too, but vicariously through Eugene. I saw some trash talking between the Whalers and Eugene, now with steak.
That was awesome.
That was a good post. Most points. What's that?
220 now with steak. I like that one.
All right, so the record for most points in the league ever was 190.70 by Shauna's superb team versus Team College Ave back in week 8 of the 2015 season. So that would have been, I think, season 3. I don't know, but yeah. So it's not the all-time ever, but it's certainly the all-time high for this season so far. I mean, yeah, for Nick, he underperformed for what he's been doing, but I mean, it didn't matter in this game. There was no chance. I mean, yeah, I mean, he got he got points from Allen. Rogers came through with a big point total on that Monday night game, and 36 from Gurley. I mean, it's just everything else kind of fell off. He didn't play Latavius Murray, which would have made it a little bit closer, but he didn't have a chance. There was no way that he could have won this game. But Murray definitely was impressive in Dalvin Cook's stead.
Yeah, that Dalvin Cook situation is a nightmare.
Yeah, definitely for your team. But Nick not taking advantage of it, even though he has the backup. So, I don't know. All right. Anything else in this game?
No, this was just a flat-out whooping.
This was a whooping. And, so now let's look at a game that was not a whooping. That was the antithesis of a whooping. Really the most exciting game of the week, and almost found Dr. Hockey off the schneid, but just couldn't do it. Black Ice Dynasty beats Make Odwin Great Again by a score of 117.94 to 116.32. The week before we had that really exciting game where Whalers just barely eked out a win against Nick and Jamie. And last week, Hockey... Was last week? No, it was 2 weeks ago. Sorry, this was all 2 weeks ago. But where Hockey almost came back on the New Orleans Monday night. He almost did it again. Look, he was down by, I believe, it was like 10 or 12 points in this game. Going into the Monday night game, he had Devontae Adams going, and Black Ice Dynasty had Crosby and Green Bay, the defense. He picks up Crosby after the horrid game the week before when I just got so frustrated with him and flushed him down the toilet. But he picks him up, and of course he goes for 17 points this week against San Francisco, which is exactly what saved him because Devontae Adams with 35.20 points. And I was watching this game, and Hockey was just creeping up. Like he was just like a reception behind. I think it was like 112 to 111, and then that interception happened for Green Bay, and Aaron Rodgers started throwing it down the field, and it opened up a slight lead for Hockey. I mean, I think it ended up being, because there must have been there was like something. Oh, the interception. actually helped Black Guy's dynasty. So he got the 2 points for the interception. So that made it 114 to like 112 or something. There was a couple receptions with the yardage that Devontae Adams got, and Aldwin had the lead, 116 to 114.94, I think. Yeah, it must have been, because that was a short field goal. And then Crosby comes in for the chip shot at the end of the game to beat him. Just a heartbreaking loss. And to compound it, I mean, he had Inouye in there, who last week he played Inouye and he had 0 points. You would think that's as low as he could go, but no, he could go lower, as he ended up getting negative -0.10 points. For a receiver, that's quite impressive. So he had 1 rushing attempt, 1 target, 1 reception, 9 receiving yards, and a fumble loss. So the fumble brought him back 2 points, the 9 yards, and the reception had him at 1.9, which would have, had he not fumbled it, the 1.9 would have been enough to win the game. But no. And, and the foul. Larry Fitzgerald had 8.9 points on the bench. Tyrod Taylor had 2.3, which would have been enough on the bench. Cole had 6.1, which would have been enough. Even Freeman, he wouldn't have had room for Freeman, I guess, in the flex. But, just a heartbreaking. You got to feel for Dr. Hockey on this one.
Yeah, Dr. Hockey's done all he can to avoid the 0-6 record, but I mean, he's just come down to these games where, I mean, of all the kickers, Miner has to have the Green Bay kicker. He's just sneaky.
Yeah, I mean, like literally any other kicker that he would have had. I don't think anybody got 17 points that week kicking. I mean, I could be wrong. I can check the stat line on that, but yeah, I mean, so what was that, week 6? Let's see, all players by position, kicker, points. Oh, no, that wasn't even close to the highest. The highest was actually Team Auto Draft. Myers for what? My son works? What? 27 points for the Jets kicker? Am I reading 27 points in a game? Wow. Never mind.
How many? Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, even the Dallas kicker, who was available apparently, Brett Maher, ended up with 21 points. So actually, Miner should have won by more. Hockey should have been beaten even worse. But let's go through the numbers a little bit. 8.44 for Jared Goff, as opposed to Baker Mayfield, who he picked up to help Drew Brees. I mean, also, you want to talk about being snake bit. I mean, this was a week where Drew Brees was out, on the bye, and he picks up Mayfield, who only gets 16.32 points, which doubles Goff's numbers. But still not enough. Antonio Brown with 21.50 points after the trade. We already talked about Devontae Adams. Landry with only 3.1 as opposed to Inouye, who we also talked about. 9.8 for Drake as opposed to Lindsey, who got 12.3. Then 15.9 for Clement compared to Henry's 3.6. 8.8 from Olsen coming back from injury. And Vance McDonald, your buddy, with 13.8 points.
Wow. Hockey sticking with Vance McDonald.
He's sticking with McDonald's. I mean, he could have gone to Burger King at any point, but no, the entree is sticking with McDonald's. This time, finally gets him a decent point total. And Alshon Jeffrey, 27.40 points. And Tyler Gabriel was 16.9. And then we talked about the 17 from Crosby and the 6 from the defense and 11 from Dallas's defense. And Rosas with only 7 points. Yeah, I mean, you just got to feel for hockey in this game. But, I mean, I will hand it to him that he keeps trying and he keeps doing a lot. I think he picked up Henry out of the garbage can that morning, trying to figure out who to put in running back. I think he was even thinking of Peyton Barber, who he didn't get and has now been picked up, I think, by the Whalers. But, yeah. Poor hockey.
Yeah, poor hockey setting up that 0-6 versus 0-6 matchup with Gate and Kazma.
I know, but go ahead.
Actually, hockey's former tight end Hooper on Miner's bench getting 22 points. I mean, Miner's made some sense once again. I mean, this has got to be a dagger in the heart for Dr. Hockey. All the people that he's thrown in the garbage can are scoring big points, and his trash pickups are getting nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing.
Yeah, or less than nothing. Negative 0.1. Well, it looks like Inua is out, so he hopefully won't be playing him this week. Yeah, and Miner, he escapes with one. You really can't afford to lose to the entree or to the dessert.
He said that 7 losses and you're out of the playoffs, basically, or that's the brink. So hockey is now officially 1 loss away from the brink.
Yeah, he's on the bubble, or whatever they call it. All right, well that brings us to the other team that moves to the brink, the Lightning Rods, putting up moving to the what?
Going right to the dessert, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, going straight to the dessert. We could talk about the appetizer with steak after this, but let's go to the dessert. now that we've enjoyed our entree, which went down a little rough, but still went down. 1603ers defeat the Lightning Rods 154.30 to 112.30. 33.5 for Ryan, only 23.8 from Brady in that Kansas City game. Calvin Ridley with a measly 7.7 points because he went down with an ankle injury early in the game. Julio Jones ended up the beneficiary of that, getting 24.40 points. Tyler Boyd with an impressive 25.20 points to Juju Smith-Schuster's 20.10 points. Melvin Gordon with 35, going against Tevin Coleman's 11.1. John Connor, the Terminator, with 3 touchdowns, had 28.9 points to Lamar Miller's 9.1. Rudolph with 7.7. Brait with 8.5. So actually, the Lightning Rods did have better performance out of his tight end. Kute with only 6.30, and I actually asked you whether or not I should play Kute before this game. I mean, I figured I would, but you said I should play Crabtree. That was obviously the better move, being that he had 21.30 points. Didn't matter in the final result, but it would have certainly been better in the overall point total. 7.3 for Cooks. Bailey with 10. The kicker, finally, I got a kicker that had some points. Tucker for Baltimore with only 3, and then 0 for the Jacksonville defense, which has been tremendously disappointing in a blowout loss, 40-7 against Dallas, and then 5 for the Rams defense. Yeah, I mean, I was actually kind of nervous about this game because all of basically my entire team, other than the Jacksonville defense, went at 10 a.m. for me, or the 1 p.m. games for the East Coast people, and I didn't, I hate that, but what can you do? And but luckily, ended up with 154.30 after the early games, and then ended up with 154.30 after the later games. Yeah, and then Lightning Rods did have Tom Brady going in the evening, but I mean, I think he needed 80 points at that point, so that it was just not going to happen. So, what are you going to say? It was the dessert. Good point total. I mean, this was one of the higher scorers in the league until Whalers just went insane. And Nick and Jamie, of course, ended up higher than this also because of not playing Crabtree. But, I don't know. Good win for the 1603ers and Lightning Rods. Fall to 0-6. Lower score than Dr. Hockey. So if they would have played in the basement game this week, Hockey would have won that one.
Yep, and our second team, which is pushing towards the brink as well. One more loss to Lightning Rods, and he will be most likely out of the playoffs as well. So things are getting kind of dicey for these two teams in the basement.
I mean, I think they're most likely out of the playoffs no matter what. But yes, as we've always said, 7 losses, and I don't think there's ever been a team that's made it with more than 7 losses or more than 6 losses. 6 is pretty much.
I think 6 and 7 last year. Nick and Jamie, I think, made the playoffs at 6 and 7 last year.
Did they?
Yeah, they were the number 6 seed.
Well, that's possible, but I mean, you have to have a massive point total, which hockey certainly does not, but certainly nobody with 8, I could tell you that for sure, has ever made the playoffs. But, I mean, 7 is really, really tempting fate.
Interesting. Yeah, I would agree. That's really tight right there.
Yeah, I mean, so the Lightning Rods left 17.4 from Allen Robinson on the bench and 10.3 from Mac, who finally came back. Mac Attack is back, but I don't think it would really. I mean, it would have made this game a little bit closer, but I don't think that he had the point total to win, no matter what. So, Anything else on these games?
No, it's pretty much a 1603's whoop up. It was a dessert menu. It was supposed to happen like this.
All right, well, let's go back to the appetizer. Now, this was a game that the appetizer did not get served. Not only did it not get served, the appetizer fought back because after the Thursday night game, there was some trash talking going on regarding some Saquon. But, yeah, you can't, I don't know, you can't trash talk before the meal is over. Once again, Amari Cooper with 0 points. I mean, how many games is this guy going to cost him? So, it ends up being a 123.58 to 113.46 score. Eugene ends up winning by 10.12 to be exact. And what did Tyler Lockett, who I believe I had mentioned something about playing him, instead gets 11. So had he just sat Amari Cooper, this would have been a Tillett win. This is 2 games that he has now had ripped away from him by Amari Cooper. So, yeah. I mean, you gave him the opposite advice. You said, you just got to play him every week and then see what happens. I took the opposite track. I said, just dump this guy in the garbage can. I think you got to dump him in the garbage can now. I don't even know if he has, but he should. Nobody's going to pick him up anyway. They're on a bye this week. Nobody's going back to get Amari Cooper. And if you are, good luck to you. But you can't have players like that. Yeah, I'm sorry. You just can't.
No, I agree. This is the Mike Evans syndrome all over again. Amari Cooper, I mean, he's finished.
Well,
I mean, he may put up next week, but are you really going to put this guy in your roster week in and week out? I mean, I said let it ride, but this is the second game in a row that he's been horrendous. He got knocked out of the game with a concussion or an injury. He's out of here. This is the second win that it has cost me. So trade team autos are out.
Well, I mean, also, and we had said, he got 2.8 the first week, then 21 the next week, then 3 the next, the following week, then 26 the week after that, and so he said he was due, and pretty much all of those single-digit games were the games that Tillett played him, and all of the multiple double-digit games were the ones where he didn't, but yeah, this time he did play him. He was when he was quote unquote due for a big game, and he got a big 0, which frankly still better than a Nua. So if you there's something there, but I don't know. Unless you're going against a Nua, I wouldn't risk Cooper. Then
look at this. If you look at Amari Cooper's stat line, I mean, it actually works out perfectly for Kimmel. Look what it says for Week 7. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wave him bye-bye. All right, so far as the rest of the game, 23.56 for Roethlisberger, for Tillett, and then the greatest quarterback of all time, Pat Mahomes, with 36.98 points. That was quite an impressive Sunday night game, actually, a shootout. Yeah, I mean, Mahomes did have a good game, finally, but I mean, he's still not, he's good. What are you going to, whatever. Sanu with 12.6, countering Amari Cooper's 0. Watkins, yayas, with 3.7 points only, as opposed to Mike Evans, the actual Mike Evans. So he not only was he playing Amari Cooper, the Mike Evans of this year, he was playing the Mike Evans of Mike Evans, 9.8 points this week. Ezekiel Elliott with 18.7 and 37 for Saquon, as we had said before, which led to the initial trash talking on Thursday nights. But Thursday night games do not necessarily determine everything, as hopefully that's the case this week, but we'll get into that a little bit later. McCaffrey with 13.6 and only 3.4 for Carlos Hyde, 4.1 from Swaim, the tight end for Dallas, and Eugene's new pickup there. 8.6 for Jordan Reed, 5.9 for Chris Carson, the workhorse, and 7.2 for Crowell. 8 for Fairbairn, who Eugene picked up. I actually was trying to go get him, but I looked out in that in terms of my kicker did better than he did. And Matt Bryant with 13 points. Why does he have an out? Injury ravaged Falcons now without kicker Bryant. Wow, he strained his hamstring in that, but he still got 13 points. His kicker gets 13 points when he strains his hamstring. When my kicker strained his hamstring, he did it with 0. So good for him. And then 20 points for the Houston defense against Buffalo, and 10 for the Philadelphia defense against the Giants. So, and actually that defensive score almost made the difference there too, or the differential between the two. Yeah, I mean, another game. I mean, this one basically just comes down to Amari Cooper sucking and costing 2 games this season. I mean, which if you look at Kimmel's record, I mean he's now 2-4. He could have been 4-2. He could have been at the top of the league if it wasn't for Amari Cooper. You got to say bye-bye.
Yeah, it's a 2-game swing. So now he's looking at 2-4, and I mean, he left Njoku. Do you really play? He's no Njoku on the bench with 18.5. I mean, over Jordan Reed. How long till Jordan Reed is overstayed his welcome? Well, let's face it, he's been no dynamo with 3.1 last week. I don't know how long he's welcome on this team either. I think Kimmel has a few key positions he needs to start moving forward on.
I mean, and he's also got Deshaun Jackson on the bench. He's got Westbrook there. He's got Andrew Luck, a quarterback who's playing, well. I mean, he got 33.74 points, which is 10 more. What is that? 33.74 to 23.56. If he would have played Andrew Luck instead of Roethlisberger, he would have won this game. There's so many opportunities for him to win this game, but he seemed to make every wrong move. So no appetizer for you.
The appetizer gets uppity.
Yeah, the appetizer, maybe the appetizer was soup and no soup for you. All right. Anything else in this game?
No, it's pretty much a case of the appetizer given to a tray. He fell off the tray.
He did. The
He's walking back to his the appetizer slipped off of his tray.
Yeah, the appetizer served the tray this time.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we could go with the appetizer's office mate, Fitzmagic, or the Millennials, because, I mean, Fitzmagic is even stupider now that Fitzmagic is not even playing, but okay. The Millennials win this game 113.98 to 94.68 over the St. Louis Blues. Russell Wilson with 27.88 points to Phillip Rivers' 19.28. Rivers has been great this season, but this was a game where he just didn't get the touchdowns, I don't think, because he kept handing it off to Gordon. Also, they didn't have to come back, so he didn't get the those points. Stephon Diggs with a quiet game for the Blues with only 7.20. Thalian, though, seems to be getting all the targets. 10.4 for Beckham. And then, as I mentioned, Thalian with 29.30 points in that game to AJ Green's 15.5. David Johnson, double digits. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions about David Johnson. I mean, this is not a great performance, but I mean, it's fine. As opposed to 4.9 for Howard. Obviously playing the wrong one is Tariq Cohen, got 23.1 on his bench in this game. And Alfred Morris with a whooping 0, but luckily he was playing against Deion Lewis, who got 3.4. I mean, this is a game where he could have played both Chicago running backs and he would have been fine and actually would have beaten the total of the Blues, David Johnson and Deion Lewis's points at defense there. But instead he decided to go with Alfred Morris with a Cooper / Inua like score. I mean, still better than Inua. Morris and Cooper have combined for more points than Inua. With 0. 2 players with 0 combined for more than hockey's number 1 receiver. But anyway, whatever. Ebron continues to get points with 17, and he actually outscored Kelsey in this game, who only had 11.10, 3.4 for Davis in Tennessee, as opposed to bunches of Funches, who got 18.4 for Carolina against Washington. Gould got 15, the kicker for San Francisco, which actually made the Blues the not lowest score in the league this week. That 15 points on Monday night. Otherwise, he would have been, he was like hovering around 72 for most of that game or something like that. Well, it must have been not 72, 80 something. I don't know, whatever. You could do the math at home. Boswell, the kicker for Pittsburgh, gets 8. Kansas City had 1 point, and Chicago with 4. Yeah, I mean, Jean-Luc Richard had a 12.10 for Fitzmagic on the bench. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look, the Millennials, not the best game, but, he's playing the Blues, so you don't need to bring your best game. So, I don't know. What do you have to say about this matchup?
Is he considered the wet nap? He's the wet nap that you wipe your hands with before the appetizer. But we can't say too much because if we look at our next game, Blues would have still beat me by 2 points. So we're the wet naps that you wipe your hands with, is because teams that can't even get 100 points consistently, which, I mean, Whalers is putting up 181 points. You have some staggering scores this season. It seems like there's more and more teams out there that are getting in the 150s, 170s, 180s. I don't know how teams like myself and Lombardi are going to fare in the long run when you can't even crack 100.
So
yeah, I mean,
well,
you look at Lombardi. He struck gold at tight end. Lombardi has Ebron, who's turning out to be one of the better tight ends, but the Lewis-Davis combo meal in that Tennessee game, I mean, they got destroyed. Anybody who had a Tennessee player was doomed.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephon Diggs and A.J. Green, you think that 1-2 punch would be very explosive all season long, but I think Tyler Boyd has really come on in Cincinnati. And Thielen is the guy that owns Minnesota.
Yeah, Thielen. I mean, look, those are both good players, but it seems to be the number twos, or the quote unquote number twos, are the number ones in those, on those respective teams. Yeah. Yep. I don't know what to say. I mean, the Blues now fall to 3-3. 1 point behind you, actually, in 720 for you on the season and 719 for the Blues. So you just edged him out for 8th place, which I guess brings us to your game, the final game of the week. Way to save the worst for last. This one wasn't even close. Although technically going into the last game, you did have a lead. I mean, Nick and Jamie's defense was basically beating you. In the early morning games. Since this is your game, I'll let you go through it and describe it. But go ahead.
This game was a disaster right from the beginning. I had my whole team going, and Nick and Jamie had Cam Newton, the defense, and Robbie Anderson, and they were winning. We're winning after the 1 o'clock game. When 3 people are beating your whole team, it doesn't look good. And then they had the night game, so we tried to hold on. I think we lasted until midway through the second quarter before they just started pouring it on.
And
this
actually,
was just a blowout.
Well, and actually, the first quarter, they kept. I think you had like a 30-point lead going into that evening game, but Nick and Jamie had pretty much everybody in that game except for a scattered few players like what do you call it? Josh Gordon, Sony Michel. They had him on the bench. Who they didn't have Hogan. And it seemed like that first quarter, Tom Brady was basically throwing to everybody but the players that Nick and Jamie had. Yeah. But then Gostkowski would get kicks. By the way, 22 points for the kicker. So the drives would stall. They would be passing to everybody. And the kicker almost made it up. Just himself. That deficit. And then you sprinkle in some Kareem Hunt with 29.50. Edelman with 16. White with 14. And it led to a disaster. So, yeah. For the Hagglers, Deshaun Watson, he looks terrible the last few weeks. I don't know what is going on there in Houston. Ever since that game against the Cowboys, first of all, that game against the Cowboys was so boring and so terrible. And their red zone offense is just atrocious. How many opportunities are they going to get from, the 1 micrometer line and not be able to put it in? But they just can't. I don't know.
No, they can't.
What's that?
I said no, they can't.
DeAndre Hopkins still, despite the porous performance by the rest of the Texans, he ended up getting 17.30 points. He had 5 receptions for 63 yards and a receiving touchdown. But Watson is really. You got to figure that's 1 touchdown, included in Watson's numbers right there, and only gets 9.28. He had 177 passing yards, 1 passing TD, 2 interceptions, 2 rushing attempts for 2 yards, and a fumble lost. So basically, you take away that touchdown from this 9.8 or 2.8 score, he had, what is that, 3 points? 3.28 points he would have had. That is atrocious. Robert Woods with 19.10 points. He's still getting a lot of points, and especially with Cooper Kupp going down with an injury, he did well there. And we mentioned Robbie Anderson with only 6.9, Kareem Hunt with his 29.50 to Bilal Powell's 5.9, and Capri Bibbs with only 2.7 points, with Adrian Peterson on the bench with 9.7. It wouldn't have made that much of a difference, although it still wouldn't have gotten you over 100. We'll talk about that in a second. Gronk with 12.7 to Azuma's 11.4. Tim Burton's the nightmare during the season, who's actually been pretty good lately, 12.30 points there. TJ Yeldon with 10 points. He's listed at questionable now. What happened to him? He's back at practice. So anyway, but he had 10 points, 24.5 from Emmanuel Sanders. And then Suckup with 0 points as opposed to Gostkowski's 22 and then 2 for the Carolina defense. Obviously Watson's performance is quite concerning. You had great performance. Yeah, look, you had good performances out of both your tight ends, whether or not, obviously you only had one of them in there. And then your receiving core is really solid. 17.3 from Hopkins, 19.1 from Woods, and 24.5 from Sanders. And Godwin on the bench had 17.6 points. So your receiving core is fine. your running back situation there is not the best. With Bilal Powell with 5.9 and 2.7 for Bibbs. I mean, even if you put in Peterson, I mean, he only got 9.7. Dalvin Cook still, who knows what's going on with that. Hines, yes, with only 5.5 points now that Mac is back. I don't know. What I don't know.
Well, I will say this is the first time that the team has scored under 100 points this season. I did take a quick look back through the other scores. So is it panic mode for the Hagglers? No, but they're certainly not excited about this abysmal performance. Running back needs to be addressed. Every other person, I mean, if Watkins going to lay an egg like that, we could be in deep, deep trouble. So those are two positions we got to definitely keep an eye on. Yeah. And hats off to Nick and Jamie. I mean, this whole Patriot game that they play every week looks like it paid off handsomely for them again this week.
Yeah, the Nick and Jamie Patriots are doing well. Yeah. All right, so that's going to do it for last week's score. Now getting into this upcoming week's. Now, we are recording this on Thursday night. Well, actually, technically Friday morning. It's about 3:25 in the morning on the East Coast, 12:25 here in Los Angeles. So we do know the score of the Thursday night games. I am not happy about this, but let's get into the matchups for this upcoming week. First of all, at first place, or the battle for first place, is the 1603ers versus Nick and Jamie, one versus two. The standings, you look at this, the 2-5-1 teams, two teams that last week, 156 for Nick and Jamie, 154 for the 1603ers. I mean, this should be a battle royale. Not exactly off to a battle royale-like start. As Nick and Jamie pick up 32 points from the Denver defense. I don't even know what to say here. They played Seattle last week with 17 points. That was bad enough. I mean, you talked about how your defense was, or his defense was beating your whole team. Well, that's happening right now. Only 8.7 from Captain Kirk. Look, the 1603, this is not the best week for the 1603ers anyway, because Connor is on a bye. Connor and or Bell, who supposedly is supposed to come back next week, even though I haven't heard anything yet. Maybe, I don't know. We could read the reports. Let's see. Miami-based writer Jonathan, I can't even say his name, Skurwitz reports Le'Veon Bell will end his holdout and report to the Steelers next Monday. So maybe, I don't even know if it'll be good. I mean, all right. We'll deal with that mess coming up next week. But look, there's nobody really to play. I mean, Ridley on the bench. He has his bone bruise. He plays on Monday night, so you can't really risk waiting for him to go around. Will Fuller has been playing on that atrocious Houston offense, which, I mean, what is he? I mean, like, he had 3.5 and 5.3 the last 2 weeks, and now he's going against Jacksonville. No, thank you. Don't want any part of that. Meredith, I mean, he's been okay. He's playing against Baltimore, and that doesn't look like a recipe for greatness. And then otherwise, I mean, I guess you could play Eckler. I could play both Chargers running backs, one in the flex. I mean, Eckler's been pretty good. He's been getting double-digit numbers almost every week, although last week he only got 6 points. But I still didn't want to do that. Risking it over there in London, so I figured, all right, I have Captain Kirk. He's actually been playing really well lately. Last few weeks, 18 points, 13 points. Now he had 8.7, of course, when I need him to perform and actually put him in the lineup. So thanks for that, buddy. But other than that, look, we've learned after the Tillett game that it's not over after a Thursday night generally. I think there was one case where it was over after a Thursday night. That was when Nicky Baby played the Blues. But, yeah, I mean, this is already behind the 8 ball for the 1603ers, and there's not much that we could do in terms of maneuvering this lineup. So let's look at, at this matchup. The actual projection right now is 123.33 to 158.3. .70 after the 32 points for defense. It was actually, going into the game, I think it was like 131 to 127. It was like a really close projection, but now Nick and Jamie really open up that difference. But okay, so Matt Ryan plays versus the Giants on Monday night. I do think that is a good matchup. Carson Wentz going versus Carolina on Sunday morning. There could be a slight advantage for Ryan there in that matchup. You have Edelman at Chicago going against Tyler Boyd at Kansas City. I do give the edge to Tyler Boyd there. Golden Tate at Miami. I think Golden Tate will do well. We already know what Kirk did with only 8.7 points. Disappointing, but he was only projected to get 10.2. Melvin Gordon versus Tennessee against Kareem Hunt versus Cincinnati. That should be a battle royale between these two running backs. White versus Ingram. Ingram's going at Baltimore. White at Chicago. Kind of difficult matchups for both of them. I don't know who I get the edge to there. Gronk at Chicago and Rudolph at the Jets. I don't know who you give the edge to there.
Well, Gronk, I mean, he's been all right. I mean, he's been banged up, but he's been producing still. Double digits the last 2 weeks. Rudolph has been kind of quiet. I still give the edge to Gronk.
Yeah, I mean, Rudolph, if he gets a touchdown, he usually does fine. Otherwise, I mean, he usually gets about 5 receptions for, whatever, and then it's just dependent on whether or not he gets a touchdown. And then Crabtree versus New Orleans. Crabtree had the big game last week on my bench, of course, going against Sony Michel, who had the big game on Nick and Jamie's bench. He's got Gostkowski going, and I have Dan Bailey, the kicker for the Vikings. I have Jacksonville's defense, who has been utterly disappointing this season in fantasy terms, going against the monster Denver defense. I tried to get the Chargers defense against Tennessee and London. I think that they're going to have a huge output this game, which actually maybe could have closed the gap on this. I mean, look, Houston's offense, first of all, Houston's been giving up sacks and interceptions and a whole bunch of stuff, so it is possible that the Jacksonville defense can, bridge this gap and bring us back into the game. I don't think they're going to get 32 points, but I mean, if they could get, something going, then, maybe they could, stem the tide of some of this damage. But, yeah, I mean, look, at this point, I think you'd be foolish to not pick Nick and Jamie, given the outpouring of points from the defense. I mean, to already have 32 points from the defense. I might have said differently. Well, first of all, I never pick myself, but I might have said differently or looked at this differently had I not known the score by now, because I do think that there are some tough matchups, particularly with the Nick and Jamie Patriots playing Chicago. I mean, it is possible that that could be a low scoring game, but and look, once the Patriots get have a bad game, then that means that Nick and Jamie will have a bad game. I don't know if it'll happen this week, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm obviously gonna pick Nick and Jamie. One, I do all the time, always pick against myself. But secondly, you just see that defensive score, and that's just staring you in the face, and it's making me definitely have to lean their direction. But I mean, it's my team, so I still hold out hope. But from a more objective perspective, what do you think?
Well, if you look at the Denver statistics, that 32 points is more points than they scored all season. In all of the other games combined, they total 29 points. In one game,
of course,
they scored more points than the defense has scored in the entire season. What the hell?
I don't know.
And then last week, they had the Seattle Seabags. And they scored a ton of points. What the hell? What are they reading? What magazine are they reading?
I don't know. I'd like to get a copy of it, frankly.
Yeah, I'm going to need a copy of that as well. I mean, they're playing the Chicago Bears, but I mean, the Bears gave up like 31 points to Miami last week. So, and I just look at Khalil Mack, looks like he's injured.
Yep.
So this could be very interesting for the 1603ers in an absolute slugfest. Let's hope they don't put up wet nap type of numbers.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're already starting to put up wet nap types of numbers. I mean, Look, and first of all, whoever wins this game ends up in sole possession of first place. The loser ends up back in, mired in the gunk with everybody else. So, this is a huge game, and this is a bad game for my team to be facing a 32 burger from the freaking defense. My God. I don't know. But, so yeah. I mean, I'm assuming you're picking Nick and Jamie in this one as well.
I just Nick and Jamie. 32 points from the defense. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that.
I don't think I have either. I mean,
32 points. That's like a quarterback number. That's Melvin Gordon numbers.
32 from the defense is like a good quarterback number. I mean, that's not even like a slouch quarterback number. That's like, yeah. Like, even if Melvin Gordon puts that up, which he probably will, who on their team is going to put up a new one like numbers? Nobody. I mean, all right, 10 points allowed, so 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 touchdowns. My God. My God.
That's the defensive performance of the year.
Yeah, no, that is insane. All right, I have nothing else to say about this crap that's going to keep me up at night until Monday. Probably not even until Monday. I don't know. Is anybody even play? Oh, yeah. Well, Matt Ryan's playing on Monday, so I at least can hold out hope. Keep hope alive that he could put up a 50 burger again. Are you ready for your meal? Are we ready to be seated, or are we going to move to other things first?
Well,
do you want a dinner? Do you want a dinner and a movie, or?
Wash our hands. Let's wipe our hands first before the meal with Lombardi's wet nap.
Okay. Yes. and this is going to be a wet nap like game. All right. So you got Lombardi going against Whalers. I mean, the newly minted. I don't even know what. He's certainly the one that's sitting down at the restaurant, ordering. The mighty Whalers going against the St. Louis Blues. So 10 points in this game so far for Lombardi from David Johnson. He was projected to get 17, so he's already under the projection. The current projection right now is 137.48 to 119.09. The actual score currently is 10-0 for the Blues, but of course the Whalers had nobody going in this game. He's got Jameis Winston going versus Cleveland versus Phillip Rivers versus Tennessee. That's actually a good matchup at quarterback. Tampa Bay has been putting up points, whether or not it's Fitzmagic or it's Winston, but they're definitely putting up points. And Phillip Rivers, other than last week, has actually been putting up points. And this time, this game is in London. It's versus Tennessee, so there should be a lot of possessions. It's just a question of, is Gordon going to be getting those touchdowns? I think he might put on a little show. I don't know.
It looks like the Sunday moved back at 9:30 in the morning again.
6:30 here, so I know. Oh, I'm aware. Well, who do you give the edge to in this game? Or in that, sorry, not in this game, but in this matchup. Winston versus Rivers.
Going up against, I mean, both of these guys should smear their opposition.
I know.
I don't even know. Probably Rivers. Tennessee just gave up 11 sacks. And now they're going to fly all the way to London. They're going to be exhausted. They're going to give up 30 sacks.
Yeah, which is why I wanted that defense, which is why Nick actually paid the $10 for. I bid $3 for them. I figured that should be enough. Nobody's paying $10 for defense, but of course Nicky Baby is. Good pickup. I don't know. Winston. I'm going to say Winston. I think a lot of this. I think actually some of Rivers' numbers might be cut into from the defense scoring some points, and then we're giving them such great field position that they just hand it off to Gordon. So I'm going to give the edge to Winston in that matchup. But that's just me. Tyreek Hill versus Stephon Diggs, and Galladay versus AJ Green. The Chiefs are playing versus Cincinnati. Diggs is playing at the Jets, Galladay at Miami, and Green at Kansas City. I I think Hill and Green can match each other up. Galladay has actually been really good, and I think Miami gives him an opportunity there. Diggs has been good too. I mean, not as good as Thielen. I keep saying his name wrong. Thielen. But I mean, look, Diggs should do fine. I'm actually going to give a slight edge to the Blues wide receivers in this, I think. Are you? It sounds like you're not.
Well, Tyreek Hill certainly has something to say about that.
I mean, he does, but I mean, he hasn't. Look, all right, he had 40 points last week, 39.20. But prior to that, he had 12.7, 14.6, 7. Then he had 20 in week 2 and 42 in week 1. So when he's not scoring, in the 40 range, he's pedestrian.
I guess, but
I mean, Cincinnati. First of all, they blew that game in Pittsburgh, so they should have won that. And I don't know. Do you think
Cincinnati just got run roughshod by Antonio Brown? So I think Tyreek Hill's in for a handsome lead.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yardage-wise, for a very nice day.
Fair enough. So you're giving the edge to the Whalers.
I'm giving the... Well, I mean, on paper, it looks like Green and Diggs should be all right, but they've been playing, like you said, second fiddle to Boyd and Thielen.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I don't know. I surprisingly enough, I'm going to give the slight edge to the Whalers.
Okay. Let's move on to the running backs. All right, we already know that David Johnson has 10 versus Denver in this horrific game. Mixon at Kansas City, Smallwood versus Carolina for Lombardi, and Kamara going at Baltimore. This is the first game back for Kamara now that Ingram is back. They were both on a bye. Is Kamara going to have early season Kamara-like numbers, or is he going to have, numbers like he had when Ingram is back in there?
That's very interesting. We're going to keep a close eye on this Kamara situation. They're playing at Baltimore. That is a brutal matchup for running backs.
Yeah.
So I'm for what Kamara's going to do.
Also, I mean, look, I do think that, Ingram, it was Ingram's first game back, and I think they were giving him the ball more than they would normally because of that. So I think that Kamara's numbers took a hit that game, but I think that they'll, I don't think that we're gonna see them go back to the 40 ranges and the stuff that we saw earlier in the season. But I do think they'll have like a decent game. I mean, well, I don't know. I think he'll have better target. I don't know about this game itself, but I think, in the future, I think that he's going to have more action. I don't know about this game because of this matchup. Mixon should do fine at Kansas City, and Smallwood versus Carolina. Look, I'm still going to give the edge to Whalers, mostly on the back of Mixon in the running back situation.
Yeah, I would give the edge definitely goes to the Whalers. I mean, Lombardi's holding on to David Johnson out of desperation at this point. But he still got double digits. So, I mean, Wendell Smallwood, is he really going to do anything? I mean, Philly's entire running game is non-existent this year.
Yeah, and Smallwood only got 6.1 against the Giants last week. I mean, Clement seemed to be getting the bulk of the carries there. Or at least the bulk of the points. I don't know. I don't watch the games. Anyway, I do watch some of them. I watch my games. I don't care about your games. It's not actually totally true, but I certainly didn't watch that Giants game. This is actually one of the better tight end matchups. Ertz versus Carolina against Ebron versus Buffalo. I mean, this is actually intriguing because we know we just talked about how good Ebron has been this season, and Carolina, kind of a tough team. So, whereas Buffalo, I mean, their defense is a little bit better than you'd think. Although I think Allen is out this week, so it's going to really... I have no idea what's going to be happening in that game, which could lead it, if they put in what's their quarterback's name, Peterson or something? If they put him back in, that could be a rough disaster. I mean, somebody might want to look into picking up that. I might want to. Who's their deal? What is this, Indiana? Well, no, somebody already picked up the Indianapolis defense. Damn it! Somebody knew what was happening, right? I saw somebody pick them up. Who picked them up? Somebody did. Oh, Black Ice Dynasty. He's on top of it. He knew what was happening. He picked them up after dropping the Green Bay defense. So yeah, that's actually a pretty good pickup. I don't know. Ertz versus Ebron. I mean, we know how good Ertz is, but I think Ebron actually might outscore him this game.
Ebron will surprise you. I think that with Thomas Davis back to the Panthers, even him and Kuechly can get a handle on Ertz. But Ertz is still the favorite target of Carson Wentz, so this is I'd say it's an even matchup with a slight edge to Ertz because he is like the premier tight end just by name. But Ebron has been keeping up with him.
Sure. Then we have Evan Ingram in there for at Atlanta on the Monday night game versus Callaway at Tampa Bay. I don't know anything about this Callaway guy. Let's see. What has he gotten? He's gotten 8.4, 5.2, 4.9 over the last few weeks. Whew. Scintillating numbers there.
That's what you'd expect from a wet net.
Yeah. I don't know why Whalers is playing Ingram. Has he been that good? I mean, he got 0 points last week. Was he not playing? What happened here? He's practicing in full, so he's back. Okay, so he's back. But still, I mean, look, McCoy did fine last week. 12.4 points. I mean, I guess they're not going to be running it that much. Ito Smith against the Giants, he's not playing him. I mean, he ended up with 10.10. Well, all right. Geronimo Allison's out. Hogan, I wouldn't trust him. Goodwin against the Rams. That's a tough matchup, even though he got 29 points last week. And Peyton Barber going against Cleveland. I don't think he's going to have the type of game that he had last week. Although he might. I mean, I don't know. I guess. I'm not going to question the Whalers at this point. Maybe I will afterwards, but I'm not going to question his motives, especially when he's going against Callaway or whatever. So, I mean, Ingram will do better than this Callaway guy. Butker versus Cincinnati for the Whalers and Gould versus the Rams. I don't think Gould is going to have his types of numbers against the Rams. And then the Minnesota defense at the Jets against the New England defense at Chicago. Obviously, you look at all of this combined, I'm clearly going to go and pick the Whalers against the Blues, against the wet nap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I concur. I agree, too.
I mean, there's a chance if Diggs and Green... I mean, look, some of these things are kind of... It's possible that the Blues could win this game. But I think it's very unlikely, given the scenario. I mean, if everything falls into place, it is possible. But you gotta look at this and you gotta think that the Whalers are gonna win this game.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah. All right. Now that we've washed our hands and gotten them nice and fresh, we actually have a matchup between the appetizer and the entree, fighting it out for supremacy on the table. Wow, Eugene is already a 91% favorite. Okay. So the original or the projection currently is 126.81 to 72.01. Hockey's got some problems, but granted, there's some players that are not. They're on a bye. He's got to put them in. But right now, Make Odd One Great Again is leading 16.6 to 0 because Eugene has had nobody playing. Kirk Cousins at the Jets versus Drew Brees at Baltimore. I mean, Cousins was not that impressive last week. Let me tell you. 2 weeks ago, he really was. 20.62. All right, maybe, whatever. We'll see. Breeze at Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore is a tougher team to play, but I mean, they air it out. I mean, granted, he's on the road, so it's not going to be like his kind of previous numbers. I don't know. Who do you give? I think I'm going to give the edge to Kirk Cousins in this. no thoughts or anything? Have you fallen asleep or something? Are you still there? Wow, sounds like you're not. So Cousins, I mean, I'm gonna give the slight edge to Cousins in this matchup versus Drew Brees, just because Brees is on the road. Although the Jets' defense has actually been pretty good this year, so I don't know, but I'm still gonna give the edge to Cousins there.
Yeah, I would. Well, let's see, against the Jets. Yeah, I would. I mean, Breeze in Baltimore. Oh, that's brutal, Bob. Even with Breeze's high flying offense, Baltimore Ravens are no picnic.
Also, especially when they're on the road. I mean, that makes a difference for Breeze.
Ooh, in hockey, Devontae Adams with the bye. Oh man.
Yeah, I know that's gonna be a killer for him. He's leaving him in there anyway, just because he's that good. He's just only he can't bear to let him go.
Well, yeah, puts other people in, they'll get negative, so he has to leave him in there.
Yeah, I know. Actually, just having 0 is actually pretty good for him. He did not play Larry Fitzgerald last night, who had 14 points on the bench, which is what he should have done, but he didn't. Michael Thomas does have that difficult matchup against Baltimore, but he will be taking some points away from Breeze, which is good for Eugene. Sanu against Inua. I mean, he's got to take out Inua. First of all, oh my God, and his only. I mean, he has what do you call him? Trent Taylor or Tywan Taylor? Sorry. It's his only wide receiver. Oh, well, he has Cole. I guess he's got to put in Cole now that he didn't play Fitzgerald. Oh, hockey, such a mess. He's got a questionable tag. He didn't practice on Thursday because of his hip. So we'll see if Sanu plays. I mean, it's hard to judge this because hockey doesn't have anybody in there. And even though he has a new one in there, he doesn't have him in there. And if he does, I mean, whatever. I mean, still, the 0 points would be better than probably what hockey would make anyway. But so I'm going to give the edge to Eugene in this, even though these receivers might not get great numbers this week. You got Elliott at Washington against Lindsey, who already played for Denver with 16.60 points. So impressive performance there from hockey's running back. He definitely played the right one there, although he could have played Royce Freeman, who got 9.7, which would have been more than I think Henry is going to get at the Chargers in Tennessee, in London, going against McCaffrey at Philadelphia. Vance McDonald is on a bye. I'm sorry, hockey. You're gonna have to let McDonald's go this week. Going against Swaim at Washington. I don't Breda. Guess he's back going against Tyler Gabriel, who actually had a good week last week. Fairbairn at Jacksonville versus Rosas on Monday night at Atlanta. And then the Houston defense going up against Jacksonville versus the Dallas defense at Washington. This is a hard game to just even analyze, being that hockey hasn't really made the edits yet, but I think even if hockey were to make the edits, and particularly since he did not play Fitzgerald, obviously I'm going to give the appetizer the lead. I mean, everyone has the appetizer first, and you could certainly have it before this entree. I'm definitely picking Dave Secret Crush in this game. This is not the week that hockey gets off the schneid. In my eyes.
No, even despite the good performance by Lindsey with 16 points, I still think hockey, without Devontae Adams, and with Enuma averaging negative 0 point whatever, that's a brutal receiving core hockey's fielding this week. Literally, he's 0. He doesn't have any wide receivers. And McDonald's is, it's the hockey. 65 points is a generous projection from him this week. He might be looking at half that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I even if he makes some moves, I just don't see what he could make to overcome. I mean, whatever score Eugene's going to get this week.
One
Yes.
loss in hockey definitely, he's closing the dumpster lid.
Yeah, I mean, look, we joke about Eugene being the appetizer, but he really, I mean, he has not lived up to the moniker at all. But hockey, the entree and the dessert certainly have. So, all right.
Dumpster fire needs to be put out once and for all. Close that lid.
Speaking of closing the lid, will Caden Casimir be under the lid with him as Black Ice Dynasty goes against the Lightning Rods? The projection right now is actually in favor of the Lightning Rods, although that's not the first time that has happened. The projection currently is 126.17 in favor of the Lightning Rods to 118.91 for Black Ice Dynasty. All right, so Black Ice Dynasty has Goff at San Francisco versus Brady at Chicago. Goff has not actually been, I mean, even though that offense has been high-powered, I mean, every touchdown goes to Gurley. So Goff gets no number. I mean, he's getting his yardage, which is 1 point for every 25 yards. And that's it, really. So, I mean, Goff has not been that good, fantasy-wise. So I'm definitely giving the edge to Brady there. Yeah, no thoughts or any thoughts on that?
On that, no, I'd give the edge to Brady on that. Yeah, Goff is, it's the Todd Gurley show in there.
Yeah. Landry at Tampa Bay against Julio Jones versus the Giants on Monday night. Alshon Jeffrey versus Carolina, and Allen Robinson the second versus New England. What did Landry do? Landry got 3.1 points last week, but he's done fine other than that. He's going against Tampa Bay. I think Landry has an okay game. Alshon Jeffrey had a big game last week, right, with 27, 5.9 the week before, going against Carolina. I think Alshon Jeffrey has an okay game. I don't know. Julio Jones, I mean, there's so many injuries going on in Atlanta, and they're like ready to go on the bye, so I think Julio Jones actually will have a big game this week. Allen Robinson the second, what has he done? 17 and 10, but he's questionable. Any updates about that? He's downgraded to did not practice on Thursday. Oof, that's a problem. Bob. All right, because of that, I'm going to give the edge to minors receivers, but not. I mean, Julio Jones will actually do well this week, but other than that, I don't know. And you got Kenyon Drake versus Detroit, Tevin Coleman versus the Giants on Monday night, Clement versus Carolina, and Kerryon Johnson at Miami. God, I mean, this is. I don't even know. I'm just going to run through the rest of this because I don't even. Stop me if anything even intrigues you remotely. Olsen at Philadelphia versus O.J. Howard versus Cleveland. I know. Well, all right. Josh Gordon playing at Chicago versus Brandon Cooks at San Francisco. That finally an interesting matchup. Gordon only had 9.2 in that game against Kansas City, and Cooks, ever since he got his bell rung, he only had 7.30 points. It sounds good, but Miner picked up Zerline. God damn it. Although I don't even care. I mean, I love Zerline. He is a great kicker, but you never know when he's going to be bopping his banana on the sidelines, and I just can't deal with that mess anymore. So, Miner, you know, good for you. You got a good kicker, but Tucker versus New Orleans for the Baltimore kicker. Excuse me. And then Indianapolis, as I mentioned before, Miner picked up the Indianapolis against Buffalo, which I think they might do really well, going against the Rams, playing in San Francisco. I don't even know. I mean, I guess I'm going to pick Miner, but the Lightning Rods could win this game. I don't know.
They could, but it's the dessert menu. I got to pick Miner.
I know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know. None of this game, and there's just These players don't interest me. Antonio Brown's on a bye. Juju Smith-Schuster's on a bye. So even like the players that you'd want to see, they're not really. They're all on byes this week. So this matchup, blah. Minor finally stopped playing Demaryius Thomas, who only had 9.2 points. But yeah, all right, yeah. So we're both picking Minor. Although I might actually pick an item off the dessert menu for the upset of the week. But anyway, let's move on to the next game. I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Well, let's get the other wet nap out of the way. Scoring under 100 points last week, it's the Hagerstown Hagglers.
All right. Well, this time you're already doing better than you did last time. With so the projection currently is actually still in favor of Nikki Baby, 129.85 to 126.25, but the actual score is 29.32 to 10 in favor of the Hagerstown Hagglers, as Emmanuel Sanders gets 29.32 points on the Thursday night game, still not equaling the defense of Denver, Nick and Jamie's defense. So they didn't do that well. But, 29 points from one player, not bad. So he's going against Keenan Allen. Sterling Shepard, Nick is going with on the Monday night game. He had a string of impressive games, 20, 25, 11, but then last week he had only 6.7 versus Philadelphia, going against John Brown in Baltimore versus New Orleans. Potential for a good game there. Certainly. He only had 4.8 points last week, but certainly potential there. I didn't start at quarterback, but you have Andy Dalton at Kansas City for Nick, going against Joe Flacco versus New Orleans, so you're actually sitting Deshaun Watson this week. Not a bad decision, but I'll allow you to explain. But as you're sitting both DeAndre and Watson, so any comment, Coach, about why you're doing that?
Yeah, can you say the Jacksonville defense? You've seen what the Houston Texan offense has been the last 2 weeks. They've been pitifully atrocious, and I'm not going to sit there and watch sack after sack turn into fumble, turn into interception against the Jaguars, as both players get single digits. I'd much rather play the Joe Flacco, John Brown combo meal in a potential shootout with the New Orleans Saints than watch this team crumble like pancakes against Jacksonville.
So I certainly understand the decision to not play Watson, but DeAndre Hopkins has been pretty good this year, even when Hopkins has not been, that great. His lowest score of the season is 15.1 against New England the first week. But other than that, 23, 14, 32, 22, 17. He's had double digits every week. You're still going to, DeAndre Hopkins' foot was downgraded to did not play on Thursday's practice. I still don't think he'll he's going to play. But interesting that you're not playing. The injury is not, this quote-unquote injury is not factoring into your decision. You just don't want to play him against Jacksonville. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, so now we got Gurley against Gurley at San Francisco against Dalvin Cook at the Jets, and Javarius Allen versus New Orleans versus Adrian Peterson versus Dallas. Is Cook going to be playing this week?
That's the question we've been asking for the last 3 weeks. Fuck sticks.
He did not practice on Thursday.
Shocker.
I know. Cook's status is now genuinely up in the air. Hopefully the Vikings were just managing his reps. Cook's Friday listing will tell the story of his Week 7 status. So I guess we'll find out in a short bit whether or not he's going to play. What about Peterson with his myriad of injuries? He's back at practice even with his ankle and shoulder injury, whereas Dalvin Cook is... I don't even know what his mystery injury... What is it with the training staff there in Minnesota? Because they had the same kind of problem with Sam Bradford, where he basically had 2 seasons off with it, like an injury. Diggs last year kept getting injured. What is going on? Do they have a training staff there? I don't understand. Do they play with pads in Minnesota? What's the deal? You get an injury and you're
And their rookie corner, Hughes, on the defense is out for the season with a torn ACL. Minnesota is an injury nightmare.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. So, I mean, look, obviously I'm favoring Gurley. I don't know about Allen. Allen is really he's completely touchdown dependent. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he gets horrific numbers as he did last week with 4.9. I mean, he rushed for 18 yards. I mean, even when he, the week before he got 11 but he had like 34 rush yards and a fumble lost, but he had 6 targets. That's why. But then, I mean, it's just whether or not they hand it off to him. If they don't hand it off to Allen, he'll get nothing. Adrian Peterson, look, 9.7, which is better than Capri Bibbs did last week, but I don't know. Do we know what's going on with Thompson? Do we know his status? Is he coming back yet? I'm actually looking right now. Chris Thompson's list is questionable. Practicing again Thursday, so that might take some points away from or some reps against Peterson. I don't know. You still have a problem with the running backs. Obviously, I'm going to favor Nicky Baby in this, just with Gurley alone. Kittle versus Azuma. At Kansas City, I think Azuma will do better than Kittle, though Kittle has been fine lately. I mean, 7 points last week, but I mean, tight end is a wasteland. Latavius Murray. Ooh, this has got to hurt. He's playing Dalvin Cook's backup in the flex versus Robert Woods. What?
Not too happy about that one, but I guess sooner or later you're going to run into that kind of scenario.
I guess so. I mean, look, if Cook comes back, then that could really hurt Murray's numbers, and then, Nicky Baby has to put somebody else in there, but that'll hurt if that'll actually make a difference. Robert Woods, though, he's been really good, and he's going against San Francisco. McManus has 10 points already. The Denver kicker for Nicky Baby going against Prater at Miami, and then Nick is rolling with that Chargers defense versus Tennessee, so expect a lot of points there. Going against the New York Jets defense, the number 1 scoring defense in the league versus Minnesota. So, I mean, it could be a good defensive matchup there. Close game. I mean, look, this Emmanuel Sanders situation is really good. Look, I don't know how great I feel about Shepard. I mean, look, I think that the Hagglers can win this game if they could figure out something at running back, and if Dalvin Cook plays. If he doesn't, or they don't, or if you guys don't figure out anything with the running back situation, then I don't know. This is a winnable game for the Hagglers. Whether or not they will win it, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely winnable. Running back situation is a nightmare right now. We're gonna have to think about that one.
Yeah. But in the meantime, since you don't, I know what's going on. I'm going to just tentatively pick Nicky Baby to win this game. But, I mean, like I said, if you can figure out something with running back, I will happily change the projection because I think your wide receivers will outplay his wide receivers. I think your tight end will outplay his tight end. Your flex will probably outplay his flex. His defense will probably outplay your defense, but I think they can keep pace. But, yes, you need to tighten up that defense, and then we'll see. But in the meantime, I will pick Nicky Baby. I'm sure you're going to pick yourself because, unlike me, you pick yourself all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then, does that leave... I think that leaves us one game left, right?
Yep.
Millennials versus Team Auto Draft. Wow, way to save the most exciting for last. Whew, let me tell you. All right. Fitzmagic or the Millennials projected to get 130.81 versus Team Auto Draft. Tillett Trey projected to get 123.29. Wow. Amari Cooper is finally on the bye. Still on the team, though, but at least he's not playing him despite the bye, unlike hockey, who seems to still want Devontae Adams in there. Right now, we've got Blake Bortles versus Houston against Andrew Luck versus Buffalo. Clearly got to favor Andrew Luck in that matchup. Odell Beckham against Mike Evans. Beckham's playing on the Monday night game. Evans playing versus Cleveland. And Thielen at the Jets versus Deshaun Jackson playing versus Cleveland. All right, I give the quarterback edge to Tillett. I give the wide receiver edge by a lot to the Millennials. Running backs, Jordan Howard. So he actually is doing the both Chicago running backs, Howard and Cohen, both versus New England, going against Saquon and Carlos Hyde. I'm going to give the edge to Tillett, just because I think one of these Chicago running backs will do well, and I think the other one will do crappily. I don't know which one, but I think Saquon can outplay the combo if Carlos Hyde does at least some. I mean, he got 3 points, but he's playing Tampa. All right, yeah, I'm Tillett. I'm going to give you the edge there. Kelsey versus Jordan Reed. Not playing Njoku. Come on, Tillett. You're like a week behind on all this stuff. I know you listen to this. Listen. I know you listen. Put in Njoku. What are you doing with Reed? Going against Kelsey. Kelsey will edge out either one of them, but at least Njoku will whatever. Sneed the fourth versus New Orleans. Wow, I didn't even know he was on a team. I've seen him available forever and never wanted to touch him. Going against Isaiah Crowell, who had 7.2 points.
Those sneaky millennials.
Yeah, I mean, Sneed. What is he? I don't even know. What has he done? I mean, he's sneedily gotten 11, 10, and 13 the last few weeks. Wow, maybe. The Sneed guy. He might sneed himself a win.
Mm-hmm. How sneaky.
Yeah, how
sneaky.
How sneedy. Sneedky.
A sneaky pickup.
Lutz at Baltimore, the New Orleans kicker versus Myers, the Jets kicker versus Minnesota, and the Chicago defense versus New England against the Philadelphia defense versus Carolina. Grown on this entire game. All right, I'm gonna pick the Millennials just because he was Snow Sneedy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have. Well, I mean, Tillett is just snake bit. I'm just gonna go with the other team. Anybody playing the opposite of Tillett at this point with his horrid snake bit team, I'm just gonna go with the Millennials.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did our job there. We got a broadcast in. It might not have been our best, a day late and a buck short, but whatever.
Mm-hmm. Just like our career.
Exactly. All right, quickly, lock of the week and upset of the week. I've already told you my upset of the week. It's going to be the Lightning Rods. Or actually, I think just as Odwin's ready to slam that garbage can down on him, I think the dumpster. I think he's gonna. I mean, Miner almost blew it against the entree. Can he blow it against the dessert? I think that is my upset of the week. And my lock of the week.
Upset of the week.
No,
well, lock of the week is Whalers over Wet Neck Lombardi.
Yeah, clearly. Oh no, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going with the appetizer over the entree. I mean, come on, hockey's no. He's got way too many problems. I think that the Whalers pick is a good lock of the week, but I'm going with Eugene beating Dr. Hockey as my lock of the week.
Interesting.
And my upset of the week is the dessert uprising. A lava cake as he takes down Black Ice Dynasty. That is my upset of the week. Do you have an upset of the week?
My upset of the week is going to be, the same thing. Lightning Rods.
Wow, really? Are you just too lazy to think of anything else? Do you think that might actually happen?
Well, everything else is like 3-3, 3-3. There's no upset involved.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the problem.
I mean, at this point, if the 1603ers pulled off an upset, given that 32 defense, but I don't know. I certainly don't ever think that'll happen. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. Sorry to interrupt your Thursday routine. We should be back next Thursday morning with all of the highlights and lowlights from this week's action. I've got nothing else. I'm done. All right. Until next time, I'm Dave. This is Geese. Bye.
Peace out.